Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 212.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today, and here's why. Because oftentimes, when you are inspired with an idea, you first of all wonder, will it work at all, let alone are you even open to the idea that your idea might grow bigger than you originally planned and become an opportunity for other people as well? I mean, for most of us, when we're starting out, we're looking for a way just to take care of our own family. But occasionally, we should be open to the idea that our idea could be bigger than us and, most importantly, provide more value to more people than we may have otherwise originally intended and become a solution for other families as well. And you know what? Today's guest will be an excellent example and case study in understanding that I have with me today, none other than Matt Miller. His company is Spirit Vending. And here's the cool thing I like about this, is that it started as a simple side business with one gumball machine. One gumball machine. You know, that little machine in the corner that your kid is always bugging you to go and put the quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies in. This started there and has now raised over $3 million for education over the last few years. Now, what I really like is the number of pivots that he's made. First, he's served in our military as an Air Force pilot, and he's also been an ad executive. But now he is a businessman, if you will, and he practices what he calls unbusiness, and we're definitely going to find out about it. So help me welcome Matt Miller. Matt, you there?
I'm here, Jay. Glad to be here.
Thanks for taking the time for, your busy schedule and sharing with us some of the things that you've been able to accomplish. Now, for those who have listened a long time, they know the first question I'm about to ask you. You may not know, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt, I promise. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, of which obviously you are one, a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, you can pick a superhero. Do you have a favorite superhero?
Actually, it's kind of funny you say that. I would have to say Superman ultimately, but it's kind of interesting. I actually started a superhero comic series here a couple of years ago. So anyway, that's a side note, something else we do for our schools as well. But I'd have to say Superman.
Superman. Okay, we'll go with Superman. Well, just like, Superman, he has an origin story, but more importantly, he uses his special ability to help people. And that's, I think, what entrepreneurs do. We use our special ability to help people. But before, Superman discovered his ability to fly and, X-ray vision and all these types of things, he was just a regular good old boy from Krypton. And at the end of the day, he had to make a decision to use those skills in a certain way. But before we get too far down this road, what we want to know is, before the Air Force, before the ad exec, before, helping schools and raising millions of dollars, before even creating opportunities for other people, who is Matt Miller?
Wow. Well, first off, I definitely do not leap tall buildings with a single bound. It doesn't take just kryptonite to set me back. But I grew up in the Chicago area. Was oldest of four. Ended up going to the Air Force Academy for college, and was blessed to have an opportunity to go to the Air Force and fly upon graduation. Flew in the Air Force for 9 years, had a blast doing it. was an Air Force instructor pilot for 6 years, and then transitioned to fly what's called the C-5 Galaxy, which is one of the largest airplanes in the world, and flew that all over the world for 3 years' time. Enjoyed my time flying, but believe it or not, was not something I wanted to do my entire life. I just kind of happened into that because I went to the academy for school. So I was ready to get out and make my own way in the world of business. Started out working in the medical industry for about a year and a half, and then transitioned into the ad world and spent just shy of 11 years there. While I was in the ad space, I had some really, really great success very early on in my career. I ended up being number 2 in the country out of 750 reps my first full year.
Wow.
And unfortunately, whereas that brought me a lot of success and accolades, my boss did not think that I deserved them so quickly. So year number 2, I went from a hero to a zero as she increased my quota 96%. The average quota increase was 5 to 10%, just to put it in perspective. So we got put in a major hole. In fact, that cost me about 80 grand that next year. And we went from doing fairly well to being in a world of hurt. And all I had to do, Jay, is look at the compensation plan that was established to know there was no chance of me digging myself out of that hole anytime soon. So I started looking to do some other things on the side. And that's where the whole idea of a gumball machine and ultimately what I do today in schools came about.
Wow. So workplace politics is the result, is how you got your push. I like it. I like it a lot. So I'm curious, I'm not familiar with the C-5. I've seen more C-130s, but what did you fly other than the C-5?
It's called the T-38. It's a little 2-seat tandem supersonic trainer that the Air Force uses to train students how to fly in their second 6 months of the year-long pilot training program. We focus primarily in formation flying and that type of thing. To give you an idea, one time we went cross country, me and one of my buddies who was another instructor pilot for the weekend. The drive from Lubbock, Texas to San Antonio is about 5.5 hours. In the T-38, we made it in about 22 minutes.
Nice. So should I call you Maverick from now on, or did you have a call sign?
Better looking, but no.
I like it. I like it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
My nickname was actually Mattress, believe it or not. At the Air Force Academy, my roommate, I'd come back from class and I'd always be taking a nap after class was over. And so my roommate and another buddy of mine started calling me Mattress. That eventually morphed into just Stress for short. So that was it wasn't a call sign, but that was a nickname through that entire period of my life.
That's pretty funny, pretty funny. A little known side note for most people listening, you probably don't know this. I actually tried to go into the Air Force because I wanted to be a pilot as well. And I heard something I rarely hear. I was too short. Meaning my torso was too short and my legs were too long in order to be the pilot, but that's okay. Little trivia for those of you who've been listening for a while. It's just interesting. I'm glad you got to go. And thank you for serving. Now, I'm curious though, through all of the experiences between, the pilot and the ad exec and the brief stint and the medical, do you believe that any of what you went through before, any of those skill sets that maybe you learned in the military and any of those other things help you today in what it is that you currently do?
Oh, no doubt about it. Number one on the list is discipline. Whether I wanted to be disciplined or not, when I showed up day one of basic training at the Air Force Academy, I learned how to discipline myself or else I was going to be disciplined. So that was a major part of it all. The other thing is just persisting, I think, through hardship. My motto ended up being during much of my career there at the academy, they can make it harder, but they can't make it longer. Meaning, basic training was only so many days and we had to graduate. They couldn't just arbitrarily extend it another week or two. So I knew they could make it really, really hard, but all I had to do was make it through that period of time and get through and move on. And so I in a lot of cases, hung on that calendar, that time frame, because oftentimes it was pretty brutal and was not fun to be a part of a lot of that.
You mean the military wasn't all about a party and fun and relaxation? What?
No.
No, totally understood. I mean, and many people have heard the phrase, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I think that's a very important thing because as an entrepreneur, there can be seasons where it's tough, but you need to know that the only difference is that at least with basic training, you knew what the end date was.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm curious when it comes to, taking in all of this. So you've got your background and then there comes this moment where you're doing your ad executive thing. And how on earth do you come up with the idea for a gumball machine? Like, what were you doing that says, I know, I'm going to go get a gumball machine?
I had read Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Jay, a couple of years before. And so I started doing a bunch of things business-wise on the side. I had done some multi-level stuff. I had sold books online on Amazon and Libris and half.com for a while. In fact, my garage at one point in time literally looked like a library with different aisles of used books. I had collected aluminum cans. I had done all those types of things, but I measured every single one of those businesses, even though they were very profitable, against what Kiyosaki talked about as far as the whole residual and passive income side of things. And I was just creating another job for myself with that stuff. So I was continuing to look for a way to do something passively. Unfortunately, I could not afford to own my own house at the time, let alone have rental properties or that type of thing. So I was stuck at something at a much smaller level. And I was with a buddy of mine at church. We were in between Sunday school and church one day, and he mentioned how he and his young daughters had bought a couple of gumball machines, and that was something they could do together, and they were learning about making money and business. And I remember that conversation. So I started looking into the whole vending side of things because it was something that I could do on the side, moonlighting outside of my full-time career, that I could work on nights and weekends and vacation time to put together. And so I had to start small. I literally had about $100 at the time. I spent about half of that on educating myself with ebooks on Amazon. And then I found a used $32 candy and gumball machine on eBay from a guy across Houston. So I didn't even have to pay for shipping. And so I'll never forget, I won that auction. I loaded up my two youngest kids in the car, my 98 Honda Accord at the time, on a Saturday, and we drove across town, and I picked up my first machine, was able to pick this guy's brain about what he had done, found out that he had 19 other machines in his garage that he wanted to get rid of, and convinced him into holding on to them and letting me come back and buy them over the next couple of months as I had the cash to do it. So I started literally with one machine, and I cash flowed the entire business from there. It was a very patient and painstaking process because of the financial position I was in, but I didn't have any other options.
Yeah. And I like the word patient about that because occasionally that's not my strong suit. I don't know many people who have ever called me patient, but nonetheless, I can understand where that's the case. Now, I've got a question because I have consistently thought about, from time to time, vending in various purposes, but how do you get somebody to let you put the vending machine in on their store?
There's a couple different ways that type of vending is done. There's either the charity side of things or there's the essential revenue share with a location. If it's a gumball machine or something like that, many operators will partner with a local charity or a national charity, and a portion of the proceeds go to that charity. And the location, they've got the space sitting there anyway, so they're typically more than willing to allow you to set up a machine there. When you're talking, bigger setups and racks and toys and temporary tattoos and stickers and all that, typically it's a revenue share of some kind with the location.
Interesting. I had no idea. See, one of the things I like about the concept of cash flow is that it's not limited to real estate. And today we're learning a lot about vending in a completely different way. That overpriced stuffed toy in the middle of the claw that you can never grab. You're telling me that's a revenue share model, and I like it.
Yep.
And now, are you any good at these vending games? Like, do you actually win when you from your own machine?
I don't do cranes.
Oh, okay.
I kept things simple. One thing I learned, this is going to sound really stupid, seeing that I flew the second largest airplane in the world in the C5. But Jay, I don't even know how to change the oil in my car. So for me to start working with vending machines with circuit boards and all that kind of stuff, I'm not the guy to do that. In fact, when we still lived in a rental place, our family, my wife would have been a perfect customer of Rent-A-Husband, which was a franchise in our area that was essentially a company that came in and did all kinds of handyman tasks around the house, because I wasn't that guy. So when I knew myself well enough to realize that if I was going to get involved in vending, number one, I didn't have a lot of money, but number two, it had to be something that even Matt could understand. And so mechanical equipment with gumball machines and sticker machines and that type of thing was simple enough that even I could figure out.
Well, this brings up a great point. Because oftentimes when considering an idea for a business, we look at our existing quote unquote inventory of skill sets and go, well, I don't know how to do that, so that's not something that I can do. What I'm hearing is that there's a part of this, there was a learning curve for you, especially from the mechanical side, in order to either repair or fix or keep these machines going properly.
Oh, huge learning curve. And once again, they're built like a tank, most of them. They'll last forever, but on occasion they require maintenance just like anything. And I could figure out a small quarter mechanism or 50-cent mechanism, but when you're talking the cranes and a lot of the skill games and that type of thing, I'm sure it's real simple once you have an understanding of it. And I'm sure in many cases it's literally swapping out a circuit board or whatever to fix a problem. But I'm not patient. I'm not that guy. I'm patient, but not in that way. I'm not that guy to spend time to figure it out. And once again, getting back to where I was at the very beginning, I definitely didn't have thousands of dollars to invest in one machine somewhere versus what I was doing, that I could literally put 20 to 30 machines out for that same $1,000, machines that I could understand how to operate.
Got it. Now, for those that are curious like me, and possibly to prevent me from getting this email, we're kind of trying to understand, because when it comes to a rental property, we get the cash outlay, we understand how the cash flow, et cetera, happens, but are you like, what is the typical, I'm just trying to understand the economics behind it. I mean, it's a gumball machine and it's a quarter. And how frequently do people really, really come and get gumballs?
Well, check this out, Jay. My kids were never kids that would use the vending machines. So I was that guy that when I first came with the idea, I was like, okay, so really, are there people actually using these things? Mm-hmm. The National Bulk Vending Association, actually Vending Times has a annual census of the vending industry. And I think the last year that I read was a couple years ago. The average gumball machine does about $12 a month in revenue. So that is 96 gumballs in that one location over the span of 30 days.
Okay.
The margins are enormous. A gumball costs 2.5 or 3 cents.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're making, potentially 1,000% on that money. So, and there's guys that literally have thousands of gumball machines around cities and states, and they live off of that. You don't think of it as real money, but it is, and it's extremely profitable.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard this right. You just told me that a gumball is 2.5 cents,
Yep.
and I've been paying a quarter?
Yep.
Oh, no. I'm on the wrong side of this. I am on. So what you're really telling me is a gumball in a location is easy to grow because you just got to wait a month because you said the machine was only $30. Are you listening to this? I mean, those silly gumball machines, man, it makes you just wonder, how simple is business really? Or more importantly, how complicated do we make it when we don't even have to make it as complicated? It could be simple as gum and vending and all of these things, nickels, dimes, quarters, pennies at a time. Who knew? I know I didn't. And hopefully you are getting a new idea of how cash flow can be created, because that's kind of what we do, is bring these things to you so that you have the ability to understand how you might have a shot at going out there to do it. Obviously, if you want to get involved in real estate investing, if you've ever considered it, we can help you there. If you want to get take your real estate investing to the next level, we can help you there. If you want to learn to raise the capital, we can help you there. In fact, go ahead and send a text message. Text book to 72000 72000. Again, that's text the word book to 72000. And I will get you a complimentary copy of my book, Cash Flow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. We use a lot of real estate examples that'll help you be able to build any business, but specifically real estate. And if that's something you're looking for, go for it. And by the way, if you are outside the U.S., you can just go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book. And you'll be able to get the exact same thing. Let's get back to it and see how much more gum we can chew with Matt.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting a mid-level machine today, I got mine used, but if you're getting a mid-level machine today, you're into it for $100 maybe. And that's a machine that is going to last you for a very, very, very long time from one of the top manufacturers in the industry. So, what's your time horizon for recouping that investment? 9 months? Something like that. It's a very short period of time. And, the numbers aren't huge. So because of that, a lot of people don't pay attention to it. But trust me, I've built my life. I walked away from a corporate job, and before that, an Air Force, being a pilot to do this. It can be very lucrative.
I like this play because it's under the radar. I mean, no one really knows and sees. I mean, this is operating. This is like that subtext that it's just kind of secretly going all along, and it's been there for quite some time. So, if gumballs are today costing you 2.5 cents, is there really like inflation worries in your business at all? I'm like, your supply, your costs of product doesn't. If it's 2.5 cents today, it doesn't sound like it's been increasing.
No, there's always that concern, in the long term, if things go to complete, what, like some people predict. But if that happens, we're all in a lot worse hurt than me worrying about, my return on my gumballs.
Well, true. But here's what I really am trying to say, and I hope everybody is listening. Most businesses have the exact inverse. Their cost of goods is increasing faster than their price that they can charge for the product. And it sounds like to me you have the exact inverse of that. It's happening. Your cost of goods may be going up, but the price you can charge for that same good is so high and so well and above everything else. It doesn't really. You're not quote unquote feeling that pinch, because oftentimes, when lumber goes up, my rehabs are more expensive, labor goes up, all of these things are more expensive, but it doesn't necessarily mean the property rents or sells for more. And you can experience this squeezing of margins, but I am so not hearing that right now.
Well, here's the thing, Jay. You can adjust, whether the market will bear it or not, on a rental or whatever, you can adjust price. With a vending machine, I can't. My mechanism is a 25-cent mechanism. Now, could I change it to a 50-cent mech eventually? Yes, but there's not a 30-cent mechanism. There's not a 35-cent mechanism. So everything has to jump in an increment of a quarter. And because of that, the suppliers to the industry understand that and do all they can to maintain as best as possible the costs, because there's only so much decrease in margin that I can absorb, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally understood. Okay, so we clearly established that there's room, there's a business here that's definitely for vending. What I would love to know, though, is a little bit about what I call that superhero moment, that moment where you realize, okay, I can go do this like full time and offer this to people and those types of things. And for most entrepreneurs, they were doing something else and they had to let go of something in order to go take on something else. But during that process, there's a bit of a struggle occasionally. So I'm curious to hear if there was any sort of that struggle for you.
Oh, big time. Because, I talked to you about the hole I was in financially. Well, what ended up happening next is we got in such a bad situation over the next several years to where I literally got turned down at a payday loan place to borrow a couple $100 to pay a bill. Now, you don't have to have a credit rating at a payday loan place, but you do have to have a bank statement that shows that you didn't have any overdrafts or any bank fees charged to your account the month prior. And I had 3 different overdrafts the month prior during my lowest period of time financially. So I had to work my way out of all that. And it was tough because here I was, quote unquote, America's finest, Mr. Top Gun, whatever. And here I can't even pay my bills. But I knew that I was in a circumstance that was out of my control in a lot of ways. And even though I was in that circumstance, it was not a true reflection of me. It was just a snapshot of my life. So I knew if I got steady and kept my ears to the ground to figure out the right opportunity and continued to work with blinders on, that I would eventually find it. And what happened was the gumball and candy and toy business that I had in the Houston area continued to grow. It wasn't long, and I had about 150 locations. But then 07 and 08 hit, and less people were going out to eat. Less people were putting quarters in my machines, and I was frustrated.
Oh.
And that's when I had 4 kids come knocking on my door in the span of a couple of weeks, selling me stuff for their local school. And I was like, maybe there's a way I can get some kids off the street, because I didn't know any of those kids. They didn't have their parents with them. So essentially they were, being door-to-door salespeople for the local school. And being a father with young kids at the time, that bothered me. So I thought, well, maybe I can tie my knowledge of printing in the ad space with my knowledge of vending, and we could start selling mascot stickers in schools and promoting school spirit and that type of thing. So that's where the whole idea of school spirit vending came about, and the pivot from gumballs and traditional business locations to schools.
Nice. I love it. And hopefully for all of us listening, you can hear the seeds of how it was planted, how it was layered, and most importantly, the decision to persevere even though you may not know where it's heading. And even more importantly than that, and I know for all of us, and myself included, there are times where you just got to go one day at a time, because you don't know, but you just know the only thing you do know is I got to keep going forward. I may not have much of a plan other than I'm going to get through today, but that sometimes is all you got to be able to move forward and get to the next step. And then boom, kids knock on your door. So that could be the very, very case. So help us.
Jay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jay, let me just say this: success is when opportunity and preparedness meet.
Indeed.
And I was spending a lot of time, not realizing it, but I was spending a lot of time getting prepared. I didn't know that God was going to totally change the direction of what I was doing. But if I hadn't been active, if I hadn't been busy doing something, learning, and just being out there in the marketplace, I would not have prepared for that moment when the opportunity came along.
Well, and indeed, not only would you not have been prepared, I think you wouldn't have been educated enough to even understand it. And here's what I mean by that. Most of us think, there's a difference between education and schooling, and the purpose of education is to teach you and I to recognize opportunity. And I've had kids knock on my door. I've also been to, vending machines. I've never thought of somehow merging those two things, because that type of opportunity I don't see that. But
right.
You did, and it's only because of all of those other things in the past, and you merged them two together. So for those that are wondering now, tell us a little bit about, School Spirit Vending and exactly what you guys do for a school.
Well, what we do is we provide a passive fundraiser for the school. One of the biggest challenges today in the school environment is that they are always in need of money. They're always having to fundraise on top of the taxes that are collected or what have you. And that fundraising requires volunteers. And as more and more families require both parents to be working in order to just keep a roof over their head, there's fewer and fewer volunteers available to the school to help out with those types of things. So with our program, we provide a hassle-free year-round fundraising program that they don't have to do any work for. We literally come in and do all the work for them. On the business side, with our franchise, we teach people how to implement our program and develop passive income for themselves as well, while supporting local education in the process. It ends up being a win-win-win scenario. We bring somebody in literally at the top of the vending world with what we do. And of course, we've got a turnkey system that has been developed over the last 8 years to where someone can walk in with no knowledge of what we do whatsoever, in a matter of a month or two, be as, up and running and doing amazing things in their local area.
So, and so that we're clear, when you're talking about the vending in schools and to prevent a number of emails, what would be the types of products that you actually have in the vending machine?
We actually sell stickers.
Excellent.
Believe it or not, kids love stickers.
Oh, I know. I have my daughters, between the stickers and these temporary tattoos, I don't know which they spend more time involving themselves with, but they definitely. Oh, I see them every time they go to grandma's house. They come back with a few more. So I totally get that. So you're telling me then you've built a vending business all around stickers in schools.
Yes,
I love it. See, only in America. Those are the things that are there. Now, does a sticker don't hurt me too bad, but is a sticker more or less expensive than a gumball?
Oh, it's more expensive.
Okay, all right.
The margins aren't as good for stickers,
okay.
but they're still not bad.
Well, that's true. Okay, I get it. Now, for someone to actually, because you mentioned the school, so I'm assuming then the sticker still probably costs a quarter or 50 cents or whatever, and you're saying a percentage of that revenue goes to the school, and obviously a percentage goes back to the operator. That, if I understand it correctly, in its simplest form, that's what it is.
Yes.
Does it ever get any more complicated than that?
No, and that's the beauty of our program. It is wildly simple. Most of the folks in our business either come from other business backgrounds or are busy professionals, and we show them how on a limited time commitment they can implement our program and literally put together a cash flow monster in no time on top of whatever they're currently doing. Very similar to real estate, just not as much leverage needed in most cases.
Well, and that's exactly why you've got my attention and why I love talking about other forms of generating cash flow for people so that they don't think you always have to use real estate. Now, you said a couple of things that I want to add some that are relative measures that I want to add some concrete understanding to. You said a cash flow monster, and you said in no time. In your definition, what is a cash flow monster and what is no time? Because other people, they're looking for solutions in various different ways, and no time to you might be exactly what they're looking for. Whereas if we go in with the incorrect expectation, we'll be like, man, it still hasn't worked yet.
Right. I mean, I can only give you my own personal experience.
Sure.
But I think it took me to add my first 20 locations. Mind you, this was 8 years ago when I got started. It took me about a year. For what we do, there's been a lot of people that have blown by that in the last few years because they've been able to stand on our shoulders.
Right.
But those 20 locations literally have the potential to provide thousands of dollars a month in cash flow for somebody. Because of the franchise laws, I can't get into specific details. But I mean, there's people on our team that do this exclusively and are doing very well for themselves. There's others that do it just as a part-time gig, just to be able to pay some bills or to be able to pay for vacation every year or whatever. So we kind of have the gambit as far as success and the amount of time people want to put into this and dedicate to it. But this business can be whatever they want to make of it if they're willing to put in the time and the energy to do it.
Indeed. And I think that's very true for most things. Is you get out what you put in, and except in this case, there's a proven model and system because you have taken. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I remember being in school, I was that kid that would go buy the candy at volume and then sell it off one at a time.
Right.
That was me. And you know, you've taken that to a completely new level. I'm just like, okay. So clearly that model works. You just got better pricing, more consistent locations, and all of those types of things to be able to work it out. So I have an interesting question. Do you or any of the individuals that that are working within your organization and franchises, do they do this with their kids and their kids go to that same school where the machines are?
Yes, they do it with their kids. I don't know specifics as far as the schools that a lot of them go to, though I do know we have machines in many of the schools of the kids on our team. But our whole goal, or one of the goals, is to allow people to put together a business they can build as a family. My goal with my kids has been to teach them skills that they can utilize once they're out on their own, and our business has enabled them to do that and to foster an environment for them to do that. We have many of our operators who now have their kids, once they've turned 18, have decided to become part of our team themselves and have their own territories in different parts of the country.
Nice.
So it's really, really, really neat to see the family and the multi-generational business that we're developing. Many environments are not conducive for that. And family is the most important thing to me aside from my faith. So that, was something that I wanted to make sure I incorporated in our business as much as possible from the very beginning.
Totally understood and agreed with the family, with the faith. And I have a question because I know for some of you, if you think like I do, you're thinking big. You guys know I'm an apartment house kind of guy because the single family houses are a little small. And it's like, I want to think big. So there was something you said at the beginning, Matt, that was important. You said that you were looking at other things, but those other things would have turned into a different type of a job. So how does someone manage, like if someone is listening and wants to or has the vision to have, and I'm just going to make up a number, 10,000 machines, how does that not become a job that they have to drive around town all day and change out gumball machines and mechanisms?
Well, it's simple because by that point in time, you have an entire organization of route drivers and all that type of stuff that are there to do the day-to-day operations. If you've got somebody that's got 10,000 locations like that, you've got a pretty large organization that you've had to put together in support of that. But once again, the business is very simple. It's not complicated. And so it's literally the duplication of the same steps over and over and over and over again, over a number of years. And because of that, it would be very simple for somebody to put together a team and to enable them to do something like that.
Excellent. Perfect. I just wanted it said in case someone was trying to think of a reason that they were like, well, I can't do it because if I grow too big, then I'm going to end up with a job. And I had a feeling you were going to say something similar to what you said. I just wanted you to say it.
To give you an idea, Jay, I've got, a guy on our team. He's got about 210 schools right now, and he works about 5 days a month. He's got several route guys that do the majority of the work. He likes to keep his hand on the pulse, so he still works in many of his locations that are close and local to him so that he can do so. But he could just as easily tomorrow hire another person and literally not work in and out of any of his locations. That's where I am today. I've got one route driver that handles all of my locations because my time is best spent today running the entire organization and being the visionary for the future and what else that we do and how we do it versus, collecting quarters and swapping out stickers at this point.
Yeah, totally understood. It makes perfect sense. Plus, it's nice to have people who keep their finger on the pulse. Now, here's an interesting question. How do you figure out what sticker to put in the machine?
The kids tell us that, to be honest.
Really?
There's a lot of trends that we can follow that are pretty easy to follow. But quite honestly, the quarters tell the story. And one of the real benefits to our program for somebody new is the fact we figured all that out. In fact, we have close to 2,000 locations today that tell us exactly what the kids want on a daily basis with those quarters. In fact, we actually develop and print the majority of the stickers that are in our machines as well because of the fact that the kids have very specific needs. And of course, in a school environment, there's very specific requirements about what is allowed, what's not, what is acceptable, what's not. So we've kind of taken over the entire implementation, logistics, and production process to where, there aren't any questions for our operator. We produce regular products on a month, new products on a monthly basis. We do product testing. We do all those types of things to mitigate the risk as much as possible for our operators so that when they're purchasing a product, they've got a pretty high likelihood of knowledge that it's going to sell.
Matt, I think everyone right now is having a transformational paradigm shift and will never pass by another gumball machine and look at it the same way ever again. So with all that being said, I know there's more than a few who probably are interested in figuring out a little bit more, possibly even exploring these opportunities for themselves. What's going to be the best way for them to track you down and figure out, hey, tell me more about, this whole vending thing.
The best way to track me down, Jay, is Matt, M-A-T-T, at SSV, as in School Spirit Vending, business.com. And what I'd love to do, if you don't mind, is I'd love to make available to your audience an ebook that I put together. It's called Live Your Dreams, the Top 10 Reasons Why You Need to Start a Vending Business. And it just talks about the 10 reasons why I think vending is a viable alternative to derive, secondary or multiple streams of income. Your audience can get that at ssvbusiness.com/CFD for Cash Flow Diary.
Awesome. And I thank you for that gift for sure. Now, one final question here for, that person. Let's pretend for a second that there's a person out there who's maybe standing in front of the superhero outfit store, picking out their cape and thinking of becoming one of these, entrepreneurs that fly around and save people using their special skill sets and talents. They feel excited. However, they still have that voice in the back of their head. And you know that voice because you've heard it. However, you've also dealt with it, but that voice can be persistent. It can be there, especially in the low times. It's loud and it causes hesitation and it can make someone doubt, will this work? And is my idea any good? And can I do it? And all those types of things. My question to you, Matt, is what would you say to a person who's having that experience right now?
I would tell them, get started today. Too many of us have knowledge constipation. We're getting ready to get started. And in the process, we're worrying our life away. It's literally an excuse why not to get out of their comfort zone. Success is not comfortable, but the results are amazing. And I wouldn't wish some of the things I had to go through to get my business off the ground on anyone, but I don't apologize for them because I learned a lot along the way that quite honestly made me who I am today to enable me to run a very large team that's all across the country and to lead them. If I hadn't gone through some of the junk I went through, I wouldn't be able to do that today. So God has a reason why He's going to put you through some of those ups and downs. You just have to be willing to put your nose to the grindstone, do the work, and make it happen, and come out the other end so that you can ultimately see why He put you through those things.
Well said. Well said. I definitely want to thank you for taking the time to invest your knowledge, your expertise here with the Cashflow Diary audience.
I appreciate the opportunity, Jay, and God bless.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? It probably means that you know who you are. You don't need me to tell you, but I'm going to say it anyway. Go over to the website. It's ssvbusiness.com/CFD, Cashflow Diary, CFD. Get started if this resonated with you, because you know what? Something needs to. We've brought many different ideas to the table. Hopefully you have found a way or are finding more ways to find your little niche, your little piece of the pie so that you can begin to create a bigger, better life. And if nothing else, on this episode, you've all learned that many of us are constipated and need a laxative. So with that being said, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.